But you can try, I think if you can put somewhere in there, like the heart focused breathing, something where you just consciously calm everything.
Welcome to A Sister's Love, the podcast that helps women who are healing by having those deep conversations, giving practical advice and words of encouragement. Come on, let's talk about it.
Hello, my beautiful sisters. Welcome to another episode of A Sister's Love podcast. On this episode of A Sister's Love podcast, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Emily, and she is a heart math coach, and she helps women get unstuck and live the life that they want to live. On this episode, we're going to dive into how we deal with relationships, how to get unstuck, and how to stop feeling overwhelmed. So, before we dive into that, I would love to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Rose Jones, and I'm your host here at A Sister's Love podcast. And I am just one woman with one voice trying to use her experience to help other people heal. So if you are a woman who is on her healing journey and is looking for a safe place to heal and find resources, then you are in the right place. I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification so that you never miss another episode of the Sisters Love podcast. Today we have Emily O'Brien, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about what she do and who she is.
Hi, Rose. Thanks for having me. I'm Emma, and I'm a personal development coach and a dog photographer. I'm British, but I live in South Africa. And I specialize with my coaching very much in helping people navigate through big changes. I've had quite a few big changes happen in my life, which I suspect we're probably going to touch on in our chat today. So I've trained under Martha Beck as a life coach, and I'm also a certified heart math coach, which is all about emotional regulation, which I think is so important in this very hustly, crazy world that we live in, to be able to keep that stuff under control. I've got quite a few rescue dogs, and I think that's me introduced. I'll wait for you to ask questions, Rose.
Yeah. So you said that you had a lot of big changes, a lot of things that happened in your life. What exactly are you referring to? Like, can you go into it? Because this podcast is mostly about people that experience trauma and about things that really change or shift their life to get them stuck and help them. So we're trying to help people heal. So hearing somebody else's story and hearing where they came from and where they are now will be great. So can you please elaborate on some of the things that you've been through, so the listeners will not feel alone in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found myself in South Africa after I got divorced. So I got married in my early 20s. I've got a daughter who's now 20. And I think on some level I knew before I got married that it was the wrong thing to be doing. But I think I was 23, 24 at the time, and I kind of went with it, and I went with it with the attitude of, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get divorced. And anybody who's been divorced will know that you don't just get divorced. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a great relationship. I learned a lot of lessons, I think, about communicating my own needs in that relationship, which I didn't do, because I can remember when I had the conversation with him and I said, we're done. And I said, here's why. And he said to me, but you never said anything. And that was a big lesson for me. I'm not sure it would have changed anything, but, and then not long after that, I met a guy who was also going through a divorce. And he got a job in South Africa, and my daughter and I moved over to South Africa with him. So, I talk about in my coaching helping people navigate change and get unstuck. It's because I've done quite a lot of big changes. Yeah. And I moved to South Africa with this guy. I literally jacked my whole life in. I think this was 2009. I don't think I really thought about the long-term consequences of that sort of change. I was not quite 30. And I think when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, you feel like you're always going to be young and everything's fine. And so the relationship was okay for about a year and a half. And then I realized that actually this was not the guy for me. But I had kind of put all my eggs in one basket. I'd given up my career and my house and everything in the UK, and I'd allowed myself to be financially reliant on this man. So it took me a year to extricate myself from this relationship. It took me a year to get all my stuff in place so I could start my photography business and I could get clients coming in and I could get myself in a position where financially I could get up and leave. And actually, what getting up and leaving that relationship looked like was packing my stuff in the day when he was at work and leaving.
I did the same thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I totally understand, like just trying to get less friction as possible. Just like you come home, I'm gone. You don't have to worry about the confrontation or anything. Just get it done, get it gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was more, if I reflect on it now with the knowledge I have, he was somebody who had had a lot of trauma as a child and had not really dealt with it. It's not an excuse for his behavior. And, he had a lot of stuff he hadn't dealt with. And he was a difficult and very emotionally unstable person. So it took the tiniest thing for him to erupt into a huge rage. So I kind of lived in constant fear of coming home one day and finding my dog's gone. It was those kind of head games that I was never quite sure what he might do. He might lose his temper and do something. So I had to find a place to rent in secret. I can remember going into the bank because we had a joint bank account, and I had to go into the bank and say to the bank teller, I need to set up a completely separate bank account, but it mustn't be linked to the ones we have because I need the person I'm with to not know about this at all. And, she looked at me and you could see her thinking, okay. And I got home and I logged into my new online banking and I could see all of the bank accounts on it. And I thought, oh my God, they've stuffed this up here. Anyway, thankfully, I logged into our shared bank account and mine wasn't on there because my heart stopped for a minute because I just thought that I'm done for. So yes, I think for me, that was, it was a huge thing. And it was at the time it was huge. It was very, very traumatic to be dealing with that. Obviously with my daughter was just trying to think, she must've been about 8 or 9 at the time. And of course, I had to tell school that they mustn't let her go if he came to try and pick her up. She had to keep it all quiet, what was going on, because she knew what was going on. It was a very tumultuous experience to go through.
Well, I totally understand. Totally. Because I kind of went through the same, like walking on eggshells all the time and not really knowing what's going to happen next. And if you do make the wrong move, will it be your last move? So just being very, very, very cautious. So what you said at the beginning of your story, you said that you went into your marriage focusing on your plan B pretty much. Like, oh, if it doesn't work, we'll just get a divorce. And do you think that played a big part of your marriage? Because a lot of people, when we go in thinking that we have a way out, we don't try as much.
Possibly. I think I went in a bit blinkered. I think I thought that age-old thing, I thought that I'd wake up one day and everything would have changed.
Yeah.
And nothing changes unless you change it.
Yeah, that is true. So when you went into your new relationship, y'all guys wasn't married, y'all was just dating, right?
Yeah.
Do you have like any recommendations to someone that's like moving out of a relationship into a new one and just pretty much like, because it seemed like you did a lot of things with him that you shouldn't have did with him, like you would at like a shared bank account and stuff like that, or that's something that you would do with your husband but not with a boyfriend, or like those kind of things like that, like thinking about those big decisions only after marriage.
Yes. I think I was so swept up in it because I'd had a marriage where I'd felt very alone And then I met somebody else who was in some respects the polar opposite and kind of gave me everything I thought I needed. And it was exciting. You know, we traveled quite a lot, and there were, you know, there were a lot of things that were a big draw with it. And, you know, he knew how to say the right things at the right time. And I think for me, it was also, I was single parenting. I was running, I was a wedding photographer at the time. I was running my own wedding photography business, and it had become really hard. And it was almost a little bit of an escape and a way out of that struggle for me. And it was a new life. It was a new opportunity. It was, I'll take care of you and all of those things. And I went into it very naively. Yeah. Because at no point when I went into it did I think, what am I going to do if this doesn't work out?
Yeah. So this time the first time you went in, like, I have a plan B. This time you went in, I'm going all in. So what you're like, I'm going to do the polar opposite. I'm going to think like I'm not going to think it's a way out. I'm just going to go into the relationship fully.
Yeah.
So when you do that, like, it's like, oh, I found my escape. So you're like, oh, this is my way out of whatever I was just dealing with. This is escape. I don't see nothing. I'm living in the fairy tale world. So, so when we go into spaces like that, we have to be more cautious. Like, yeah, not saying like block ourselves from experiencing life, but actually still be cautious of who we're interacting with and not moving as fast because, oh, I see green lights doesn't mean that it's still not a process of dating.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think I'm in a relationship now that's wonderful, and we're getting married in 85 days. I have a countdown in the kitchen. And it has been a very different process. It was allowed to evolve, and you know, I've probably kept too much independence. I think is the flip side of being naive, is that you kind of sit with overly protecting yourself. So it's a learning. It's life, and yeah, I think with that, you know, we don't share a bank account.
Yeah. So how did you find a balance? So you went from a relationship, a marriage that was like plan B, a relationship that was like, oh, this is my escape. Now I'm in la la land. And now you have that good zone. You found the it. So you can know how you shifted in between each one of those to get where you are today.
Yeah. So I think it is kind of getting to know yourself, getting to know what you need, getting to know what you expect from a relationship. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a relationship expert, because I'm absolutely not. But if I look back, my self-esteem was my low self-esteem played a very big part in the people I got involved with and the people I dated after the guy I had my midday run away from. I think I was seeking some validation. And it took actually getting to grips with being on my own and accepting myself. And what I ended up seeking out was somebody who would accept me for who I am, not for who I should be or what I could be. And I think the secret sauce with this is I just showed up as myself.
I truly agree with that. I always say the root of all our issues is us. So if we don't know us, we can't reflect anything into this world. Like if we're not aware of what we do, what we're doing, what we're seeing, and how we're moving in this world, we're just like on automatic, and we're just living, or we're just like surviving, and we're not actually living, and we're not thriving. So I totally agree. I like everybody. Once you lock in and loving yourself and realizing who you are and what you want in life, everything else comes. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to say it's going to flow, right? Because it's work that comes after the self-awareness. It's the work now, putting the work in to make sure that stays where it is.
Yeah. I can remember I've read a great phrase, and it's popped up a few times recently for me, that a hungry heart will eat anything that it's fed. And that was me for a long time. and I took stock after, because I was, online dating, and which was, I mean, goodness, that was an experience in itself, and some stories to tell from that. And I can remember I dated a few guys, and they were great, but they were always emotionally unavailable. So it was always like, you're really great, Emma, but you're not, we're never going to marry you. And it took me reframing that and looking at it and saying, maybe I've not accidentally bumped into all the assholes that are here.
Yeah.
There's a common denominator here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's me.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that I am doing that is attracting this in? What am I settling for with their behavior? Men, I have found, tend to lay their cards on the table. I had most of them say to me, don't want to get married, not interested in a long-term relationship. But the hungry bit was like, well, maybe I can change your mind. You shouldn't be having to persuade somebody to be with you.
Exactly. Like, a lot of people talk about relationship stuff. Like I heard a quote like that too. It's like a lot of people leave relationships broken or feeling unworthy and or not enough. And that's the biggest thing, that we would never be enough for anybody that's not right for us. So it don't matter what you do or what you say. At the end of the relationship, if that person wasn't your person, you will never be enough for that person, because it wasn't your person.
Right.
So when we're leaving relationships and we feel broken, or we feel confused, or we don't understand, and we're sitting there doing self-blame, it's not about us. It's just that we didn't find our perfect match. So you need to walk into spaces like, oh my God, this person doesn't love me. It's okay. We're on this experience called life to find our person, to find our source. And when we encounter things that's not our source, it is that source job to tell us that we are not a fit. And that way they do it, it might be cruel, or we feel unreasonable about, but it's only way for us to walk away from it. If it was that source would sit there and be nice to us, we will never walk away from it. We will never find our perfect match.
No.
But when we come in contact with our perfect match, they make us feel loved, welcome, and we want to stay there. And if everything that was in our match does that, we would never be who we are meant to be, or be where we're supposed to be, or with who we're supposed to be with.
No, that's very true. And I think also you said something earlier about if you're broken, and a lot of people are having a relationship end, whether they end it or it's ended for them by the other person, and they're coming out broken, and they're not doing the work to heal that broken bit. We take our brokenness out and we're asking somebody else to make us feel better.
Yeah.
And no person can do that. I think a successful relationship is about, look, everybody has issues. You can't sit here and say that anybody is, there's always going to be somebody who's completely right for you. I think all relationships take work in some areas, but I think the work has to start internally if you're looking for a healthy relationship, because you have to be kind of whole and complete, and more or less on top of your triggers and your issues and your stuff before you get into a relationship, if you want it to be a healthy relationship. I think this is it's so interesting. I was having a conversation on my podcast with a dating coach, and we were talking about healing past stuff in order to be able to have a healthy relationship. And one of the things that came up in the conversation is a healthy relationship, if you have been in traumatic relationships and very fiery, passionate, almost dangerous feeling relationships, being in a healthy relationship can suddenly feel very boring.
Yes, very boring. And then you go seeking that adrenaline rush. You want that rush. Like, I don't feel love. Like, for them, love feels like panic.
Yes.
And when love is calm.
Yes.
And when you never experience calm love, you can't crave it. And if you didn't do the work, knowing that that adrenaline rush is it's this cycle. It's like the cycle of drama that you're running on, and you're not understanding that. And once you get off of that, your body starts to get calm, and that's what you pretty much like specialize in, like overwhelm and stuff like that. So let's jump into that. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about how when you do, like when people do have that adrenaline rush and they do feel like that, you start to feel overwhelmed and start to feel like you're out of control and stuff like that. So how do you help people work through that and stuff like that? That feeling of just shifting from that overwhelm to a state of calmness.
Yes, and that's quite a big shift to make, and it takes quite a lot of work to be able to get out of that. If you've been used to being constantly in fight or flight, which so many people are, and I think especially when it comes to, like we were talking about, relationships, and I think if your relationship is constantly giving you anxiety, that is a number one sign that it's perhaps not the relationship for you. And I think we can mistake that for butterflies. But again, if that's what you're used to, and that's a pattern you've got running, that's a pattern you're going to run until you stop it. So to come to your point about calming stuff down is when we're in that fight or flight state and we're constantly agitated and we're overwhelmed and we're anxious, we're not thinking clearly. We're thinking from a survival perspective. We're thinking from panic, desperation. And the work I do is to help people to calm their nervous system enough so that we can get that logical part of the brain back online and start to think about, there are a lot of red flags going on here. Maybe I should listen to them. And to allow you to calm that stress response enough so you can start to really be logical about what's happening. And then you can start to make sensible decisions about how you're going to make a change there. But you're never going to make a good decision from a place of overwhelm and stress and franticness.
So how do you actually do that? Like, how do you help them calm their nervous system?
So I said I'm a heart math coach. So heart math is a series of techniques that you use to get in touch with your heart's intuition and to get your heart rate variability into an even keel. So it's things like, it's so simple, but it's something that has to happen over time to kind of retrain yourself. So it's about slowing your breathing down. Literally slowing your breathing down will help to calm a stress response. It's then about learning to cultivate a positive emotion almost on demand so you can build your emotional resilience. Perhaps you can relate, if you've ever had a really good day, how that when you go out and if you're in a good, calm state, people respond to you quite differently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about teaching people to be able to create that state on demand. And then you, in effect, build up your emotional resilience battery so that when something goes wrong in life, because we're human, stuff happens.
Stuff happens. Yeah.
Stuff happens. That's the polite version, isn't it? Stuff happens. We're able to access that inner calm in a moment that might be triggering and almost stop the fight or flight response from setting itself off. You can catch it before it happens, and then you're able to access making a better decision. Could I respond calmly to this person with whatever they've said rather than reacting to them? So that's the work I do, is to teach people the tools and techniques to get that nervous system calmed. And these are tools and techniques that you have to practice in order to be able to. It's not just a one-shot, Rose. I can teach you it now and then you never have to do it again. It's like meditation. It's like eating healthily. It's something that has to become a way of life. So you have access to it. We live in a world where everybody is stressed, and the more we can be calm, the more we radiate that out to other people. And it has an influence. I've shared the example of when you're having a really great day, how people will let you in traffic, good things. We have good interactions. But on the flip side, if you are overwhelmed, raging, stressed, what happens? Your day unfolds with like one disaster after another.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with that. Like, it has to become a daily practice. I try my best to like do breathing like every day, and I have to start my day with a whole process because I've been through so much, and it's just like my overthinking, my overwhelm,
Yeah.
I would have this overwhelm and I would shut down. And I try
Yes.
not to shut down because won't nothing get accomplished. I kind of,
No.
well, because I am in my healing process, what I do in that kind of situation, I allow, like on those days that I really just felt overwhelmed and I feel like I can't get nothing done and I'm overthinking, I just allow my body to sleep or rest. So whatever it wants to do, I allow it to do. And on the days that I'm really excited and really off and going, I just do, like I'm on like overdrive. It's like, going. It's like I just get as much as possible. I say, because I know it might be 3 days a week that I'm in overdrive, and then like 2 days a week that my body's like, we had enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, do you have like any recommendations for that? It's like, how do I just allow my body to rest when it says I need to rest? Or I don't think it's common that like 2 or 3 days a week that my body literally is like, I had enough. It might be because I'm on overdrive on the other days. It's like not a real balance.
Yeah. So it sounds to me that you're going into it, as you've described it, into a freeze response.
Yeah.
Is there something that on the days that you're like, I just want to go to sleep, is there something that happens to trigger you into wanting to shut down?
It's life. This is a lot. It's just like I have a lot. I have 4 kids, and then I have my niece that's living with me. I'm running a business. I'm still working a 9 to 5, and it's life. It's
yes.
It's just life, and I'm still dealing with my healing process. I'm still dealing with processing, and my 2 of my kids have a mental disability. They have ADHD. In school, his school situation, just a lot that goes on.
Yes.
In my day-to-day life, and just trying to balance me, balance them, and then making sure everything comes together the way it needs to. And then when it doesn't, it's like, oh, it's one of those days.
Yes. And what I hear and what you're telling me is you have an awful lot on your plate.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm happy to teach you the heart math breathing technique if you would like. This is something that you can use at any time when you need access to a little bit of calm. So literally, you can close your eyes if you want to. I'll close my eyes with it. You can imagine, just focus on the area around your heart, and just imagine that you're breathing in and out of your heart space. And we want to be breathing in for a count of 5 and out for a count of 5. And you can do this for literally 2 or 3 minutes, a few times a day, especially when you're starting to feel very overwhelmed. We've just done that for 30 seconds. How does it feel just to stop and slow down for a moment?
It feels good just to have a moment to myself. So just having that moment to self is what's important. Just like not validating, like making myself know that I should give myself time, and just giving myself that makes a difference. And that's not my big, I know that, like this, but sometimes it's easier said than done, knowing that you're supposed to give yourself time and make time for yourself. But like those days that I do make time for myself, I kind of like I said, sleeping. Like I just like, oh, it's my time. I get to catch up on my sleep that I really didn't have. But it's like, then I wake up with regrets. Like I slept this whole day away. I didn't accomplish something. So it's like like that crazy cycle, like in a relationship, but it's like with myself, like it's the relationship that I'm battling myself, like self-doubt, self-criticism, criticizing stuff like that, just like, oh yeah, even though you need to rest, now you didn't do this. So now you're back in the battle with self.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think from what you've just said to me, I'm not surprised that you feel like you need to go and rest, because you've got a 9 to 5 job, 5 children in the house, a business you're sorting out. and all that comes with 5 children in the house. I mean, it's a lot to deal with. So, but then on the flip side of it, I also hear that you're like, cool, I'm gonna sleep because I'm tired. And I imagine you probably are quite tired, because I'd be curious as to how much sleep you get every night.
Oh, I don't. I work overnights.
Okay. Okay.
So I work overnight. I come home,
Gotcha.
sleep for like 3 to 4 hours to just reboot. And then I start working on my business until the kids get home around 4. So on my days off that I don't have to work overnight.
Yes.
Like I come in home and then I just sleep the whole time.
Yeah.
Until they get home. And then I get to sleep at night.
Yeah. And maybe that's also what you need. Because for having some more information from you, you're not kind of shutting the world out to go to sleep. You're going to sleep because you need to sleep. So I guess if on those days you needed to fit more stuff in, could you break the sleep up a little bit so you could do a little bit in the middle of the day if you wanted or needed to?
Yeah, I probably could. It's just that will I be willing to? That's the problem. Like, when I go to sleep, I'd be like, okay, I'm up, and then look at the clock. It's like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Like, oh, the kids be home in an hour.
Okay.
Just like maybe just try to reprogram that sleeping habit.
I think it's difficult when you work overnight shifts because that is very disruptive to sleep.
Yeah, I do the overnight. I do it because of the family. So I work on my business while they're in school, and then I work at night because I want to have that midday with them. So that midday so that they can see mom. I don't want to. And then if I work mornings, I feel like then when I have time to work on the business. So I kind of base my schedule on where I can still work towards my dreams, and I can still provide for the family, and I can still have family. Just like a little balance. I tried to balance.
Yes. I hear that, and it sounds like you're doing a great job of balancing all of that. But you can try, I think, if you can put somewhere in there like the heart focused breathing, something where you just consciously calm everything within you just for a few minutes. It's very soothing for all of your systems in your body just to chill and just to slow. Because just breathing deeply and slowly will help to calm a nervous system response. Because when we're anxious and we're overwhelmed, we tend to we don't breathe enough, so we don't get enough oxygen. So then you feel more tired. So just the sheer act of some deeper breathing is very transformational.
Well, I'll add that to it because I do like meditation and stuff like that, but I don't. I looked into like breath work and stuff like that, but with so much going on in my life, I didn't have the time to study. Continue to study on it. So I'll probably go add that back to my study guide and working more into figuring that out, breath work and stuff like that to help me navigate my life.
Yeah. I mean, thing is with breath work is rather than adding more stuff to your study list, there are lots of different breathing techniques, but literally to be able to sort of reoxygenate is just to breathe very deeply to do belly breathing. Like if you were doing yoga, they'll often get you to just breathe all the way down. So your belly expands, you get a good, and then just breathing in slowly and out, even slower. A slower exhale than inhale is very powerful for just woosering everything.
Gotcha. I would definitely. I'm gonna try it later.
Yeah, you can. Think it's the great thing with breathing is we're doing it all the time. So if you can become conscious of it and just slow it down when you're having a conversation with someone, you don't. That's the great thing about it. You don't have to allocate half an hour a day to go and do it. You can do it right now.
That's true. Like you could just do it. You can kind of
can just do it
without closing your eyes. So you can do it while you're driving. You can do it like when you're sitting down. You can do it while you're doing your work. You said, like I can do it right now.
Exactly.
This podcast.
You can do it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, before we end the podcast, is it like anything or any advice or anything you want to say to the listeners before we end that you think that they need to know?
I think if we come back to what we started talking about, and you said this podcast, you've got people who have been through trauma and been through very difficult things listening to it, is where it's possible to get yourself the help to heal that. It's important to do that. I think it's important to know that healing is a process and to be gentle with yourself while you're going through that process. There are lots of resources out there that don't have to cost loads of money for this. Another technique, I don't know if you're familiar with EFT tapping, so that if you're very stressed in a moment and something's really very overwhelming for you, just tapping through your meridian points with that is a great way just to dissipate that. And I think the kind of going into freeze is very common with people who've been through very difficult things and just go, I actually can't move at the moment. And if you're in that state, and you need or want to get out of it, is what's the tiniest thing I could do just to move now?
That's true.
Tiniest thing.
When she say freeze can go into, it can look different ways. For me, it's and if some other people it's isolation, some other people it's like withdrawing. You can freeze you can freeze and isolate with people. You can be with people and still isolate yourself. I kind of do that too. You can be a room with people, but I'll make sure I put myself in a corner where I won't be seen or I won't be socialized with. So you can still isolate, you can still freeze in a group of people. So I want people to realize, that I'm not freezing. I'm out here. I'm exploring. Are you actually exploring? Are you actually interacting with people? Are you actually trying to contribute to your healing process? Step one is to socialize if you do have issues with isolation, but it's also to be interacted when you out socializing and just trying to understand yourself and what you are doing, if you're running, if you're freezing, or if you're fighting. Like the biggest fight that a lot of people don't realize, like I'm not fighting, I'm not physically hitting people. No, you're fighting when your words, you're defensive.
That's it.
You're not trying to receive.
That's it. And I think the other thing just to end off on is that the way you feel is very valid and can be a really big indicator of whether something is right or is not right for you. And if you can get in touch with your gut feeling almost with situations and to start to listen to, is this a good thing? Is this not a good thing? Because we often totally ignore that. We totally ignore that. I talked about, that if you're in a relationship and it's giving you anxiety all the time, that is a sign that you're feeling very insecure and it's probably not the right relationship to be in. But often we just ignore it. And it's important to learn to listen to those. Your body will tell you. It's important to listen to those signals.
Yeah, that's true. But one thing else I realized that with me being in a relationship, sometimes our anxiety might come from us, from within. That's why you said
absolutely,
because it could be the right relationship, but because of past relationship, you're giving yourself anxiety. Like you're waiting for what I do. I used to wait for the ball to drop. Like I know it's coming, so I anticipate it. And then I give myself anxiety because one little sign, like, oh, that's it. But it could not actually been it, but I made it. I made it a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because I told myself that this problem was going to come and I made it a problem. So just understanding that, you could have anxiety, but that anxiety could be self-inflicted too.
Yes, very true. Very true.
You're not healing. You did not do the work before you got into a new relationship. It could be self-inflicted. So just analyzing self. And it could be the other person, not saying that, it's just me. And as you do the work, as we do the work, we will see if it's us or the other person. But you have to do the work first. Once you do the work, you will say, I'm doing the work. I am actively trying. I'm actively doing it. And I'm communicating. And now that I see that my partner is not actively working with me, now you know that the anxiety that's still there has something to do with your partner.
Yeah. I think that's great advice.
Yes. Now, before we end off, can you please let the people know where to find you, a little bit more about your podcast and your website, your social media and everything?
I can. Thanks, Rose. So you can find me at emmaobryencoach.com, and I'm at Emma O'Brien Coach on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. My podcast is the Lemons and Pineapples podcast, and it's a personal development podcast. I do some solo episodes and some guest episodes. So we've covered all sorts of things, from somebody who was a medium, and I've got somebody who's talking about gut health. I've got a podcast episode about how sleep affects your mental health on there. So there's all sorts of really great conversations on there. So you can go and check that out. It's on the usual platforms, and see if there's something on there that resonates.
Your social media handles?
Yes, it's at Emma O'Brien Coach.
Okay. Do you have a website?
I do. It's emmaobryencoach.com.
So I will have all her information linked below, so that if you guys are interested in looking her up and finding more about her, you can just click the link under in the description of this podcast, so that you can learn more about her or connect with her and see if she can help you with this breathing stuff. Because I'm definitely going to do it. Because
awesome.
As you can see, y'all listening, that this healing process is not going as smoothly as I thought it was, but I'm okay with the process. I'm not going to stop though. So
I think a wonderful phrase that often comes to mind is the breakdown sometimes comes before the breakthrough. So it can sometimes get harder before it gets easier. And it's a journey, I think, that doesn't stop. You just get more equipped at dealing with things as they come up. That's the thing. Life is a journey. You never get to a point where suddenly everything flows and it's all fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the nature of being human, sadly.
I totally agree, because I was like, well, the healing, healing it's a journey. Is never a destination. So it's like when you get to a certain point, it's like you just notice, like, okay, before I would react like this, but because I did the healing and I did that, now I can react like this. So it's
absolutely
about your progress and how you're developing and you're evolving as an individual, where you're not allowing things to take over or shift you into survival mode, and you can continue to live like, oh, this happened. Okay, I can continue to go on with my life instead of staying in that moment for too long. So it's just I love what you've just said there. And I think that is a great indication where you're making progress, even if it doesn't feel like you're making progress, is that when you have a situation that's triggering for you and it comes up and you're not triggered and you go, I didn't just go into an anxiety spiral about that, or I didn't just have my nervous system activated by that. The work is working. And it's little things like that. And it's important to notice it and acknowledge it and congratulate yourself for that, because that is huge progress. Like you said, if you respond differently to a situation than your old self would have done, you're doing the work and you're making progress. Yeah. And the flip side of that, if you don't respond the way that you want to respond, that is okay too. As long as you come to awareness that you are not, sometimes long as you're aware that you did not respond the way that you want to respond, that is still progress. It's when you respond and you're not aware of your response. That's when the problem comes in. So I want everyone to know that, like, oh, I didn't do it the way I want to, so I'm not hit. It's not working. No. You are aware that you did not do it the way you want to. So you know that it's still more work to do, but you're consciously trying. So I just wanted to put that in here, because we sometimes talk more about the good and forget about the process. Is like, okay, we can do this, but sometimes this still happens. So
yes, absolutely. And I think, again, that's a really great point you've made with that, is just that self-awareness is half the battle with everything in the kind of healing journey, is the self-awareness. If you can self-reflect and say, oh, my fight response got the better of me because I didn't sleep very well the night before, but I realized, and I've gone back to apologize to the person, or if that's not possible, you have the self-awareness to say, next time, I'm not going to do it like that.
Yes.
That is, it's, I think the trouble is we live in a world where most people are not aware of their own behavior and the impact of that behavior. So the more people that are doing healing work and the more you add to this planet being a better place by taking your self-awareness and your appreciation for other people out into the world.
You'll do better. Yes. We'll be better as humanity.
Yes. Well, let's hope, hey?
Well, that's it for today's episode of the Sisters Love Podcast. But before we end, I would love to invite you to our exclusive support group. In this support group, you'll get access to some of the guests that comes on the podcast, where you can ask them questions or you can talk to them more about the conversation that we discussed on the podcast. You'll get resources. You'll get a community of women who understand you and know what you're going through. So if you are a woman who are looking for a safe space to heal, a place to express yourself, and a place to feel love, then you are in the right place. I would love for you to be part of our group. All you have to do is click on the link below. It is called Creating Safety in Your Healing Process. And this free gift is a guide that helps you create safety so that you can start the healing process. So a lot of people don't know that to heal, we must first feel safe within ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, so that we can move into the actual healing process. Because if you're not safe, if you don't feel safe, you stay in survival mode. So it's like shifting you from survival mode into healing mode. So that is definitely a resource that I would love for you to get access to. And once you do that, you'll get access, you get exclusive access to the support group, because that resource is in the support group with a whole lot more. I drop resources every month for you guys for free. So all you have to do is click the link below, Creating Safety in My Healing Process, to get access to the support group. And that's it. Until next time, my beautiful sisters. Bye.